Hello, and welcome back to She Plays Nation. My name is Danny, your host, and this is the podcast on flag football, the fast growing sport that's taking the country over by surprise. Today is our very first live podcast, so it's a big thing for here at She Plays Nation, and we have a very special guest joining us today, Mr. Kevin Dickens from Unleashed Flag. How's it going, Kevin?
Good. Appreciate you having us on, Danny. And She
Hey,
Plays Nation.
Hey man, thanks for coming on. Like so, we've talked back and forth a couple of times. I know what you're about. Why don't you tell the viewers what your organization does and how you got started when playing football?
We started this year in 2026. Myself and my fiance. I've been playing flag football for about 20 years. I played in college, intramurals, ACIS, NURSA. She's played in Chicago. She's been XFL champion. She's also been the wide receiver coach for the Chicago Winds. So we basically fell in love with the game of football and decided that this was the perfect opportunity, especially with the growth of flag football for young women. Over the last 2 years, we decided that we would put together a nonprofit for our youth, and then aim something for the adults as well. So we've got, some women travel teams, we've got some adult cash cup tournaments, and again, we've got our youth where we're doing camps, showcases, and clinics and tournaments for them. Just trying to continue to build on momentum for flag football and show that it's not just a recreational sport anymore, that it can be something that can prosper for you in life, can take you, further, especially for young women. I know a lot of young women love football and didn't have that opportunity. So we are looking forward to giving them, different advantages than some of the previous generations had.
Right on, man. And I know we've talked about, the way flag football's going and the direction it's going. And we were just talking earlier about how a lot of coaches, they're in it to try to actually make the sport grow. Some coaches are in it just to make it a quick dollar. And we've talked about it in the past and how like a lot of coaches, they really don't get to know the player before they go out there and offer a college scholarship to them. I mean, what do you think about all that?
I am firmly entrenched and I know that the game is growing, especially for the young women at an exponential rate. I just think that we have a lot of young girls out here who are just being plucked to help with tuition wise for a school, and don't really have a lot of experience with the game quite yet. They haven't really seen a lot of what is going to happen when you get to the collegiate level, particularly for that. And I think we have a lot of coaches out here that are not in it for the love of the game and to really teach the knowledge of the game and build up the basis of it. I think a lot of them, don't have the experience of flag, which is okay. But, the best part about coaching is being able to adapt to what you're seeing and how the game is going. If you're a tackle football coach, it's going to be extremely hard for you to pick up flag right away, and I feel like a lot of these coaches, they kind of approach it, well, I get them in the door, I could teach them. That's not really how it works with flag. Flag is a little bit unique. It takes a little bit of time to, to create those moves, to dip, to jump, to understand defenses. It's not, you got to be able to teach them and understand it. If you don't have quite a great understanding of it, it makes for a really bad downfall. I mean, I feel sorry for some of the girls that, collegiately I seen get pounded this year, by some of the top tier programs. I think that speaks to, schools not really doing their research on girls, like you said before. And also, the girls just feeling, oh, well, someone offered me a scholarship and it's a way for me not to pay for college, which is always going to be great. But at the end of the
Exactly.
day, if she has a love for the game of football and she wants to learn it, she wants to grow in it, you're already killing her groove for it.
Yeah. Do you think it's the same way with tournaments? So we've talked about in the past where when tournaments come in, we have like the big name tournaments from like Under Armour and Nike, and they get like those powerhouses teams, but then you have the smaller teams that come in and join, and they're just teamed up against the powerhouse teams. So they're gonna get
Mhm.
slaughtered, 67-0, 50 something zero. I mean, to me, I think they need to do a better job at doing like a bracket system or like a division system. That way there the games are going to be more I don't know, same level, but still competitive. I mean, how do you think about that one when it comes to the tournaments?
You know, there are, you know, There are so many tournaments that are popping up and so many new organizations and so many changes that at least, since the beginning of 2026, I would say beginning of this year, one thing I've noticed, being a newer organization. I mean, I have experience doing, throwing tournaments and running leagues from previous in flag. So, I've got a little grip on it, but I think when I'm watching a lot of these new tournaments pop up and these new organizations pop up, everybody wants to be seen right away, which
Mhm.
is fine. You're going to get some media coverage. Any good tournament director is going to make sure he's got a good media team so that he can get you those highlights so that you can get that film about your team being seen. But also, when you're a new organization, I think that coaches should really take a hard look at what they have around them, as far as talent wise, what um, each family can afford, what your program can afford. It's always nice to play. Don't disrespect any of the big names out there, but it's nice to play in those tournaments. But if you're not ready, don't do it yet. You're only hurting your program in the long run when you go to these bigger tournaments, these hard counts, these battles, these Under Armours, these Nikes, and you have a poor showing. It really defeats the confidence in youth. And it's really hard, to rebuild that confidence in a young person. They're not as prone to bounce back. Like you may be in your early adult years to your adult years when you're playing and things like that. So, if you take a 10-year-old to a tournament and you go 0 for 4 and you lose all the games by 21 plus points, they're not gonna want to play anymore. They're going to want to either switch sports or they're going to try to find another program. And, then it becomes, now you're chasing to try to keep them there, but you haven't built a good foundation or a base for them to have trust in you as a coach and as a program. So, I think my best advice is if you're a new program, you're a newer flag team, take your time. There are steps to this. I like to say it all the time. There's a way to build it and to build it right. And you can't just jump into the, I mean, I know a lot of people like to say that, just jump into the deep end, you'll swim.
Right.
That doesn't always work. Sometimes
There's
you got
a
to learn, you got to take those classes, a little bit doggy paddle, a little bit of time. And I think that will go a long way.
Yeah, it's like a pyramid that they have to like go through and mark off the
Yes.
checks before they move on. And like you
Right.
were talking about like the way it is for a younger person compared to an older person. Do you think playing the sport at a younger age and doing other sports such as soccer and basketball compared to these seniors in high school that have never played a sport before and they pick up flag football, do you think that they're going to have the same a problem catching up with these girls that are starting at a younger age, or do you think it's going to be where they're gonna be able to jump in because they played basketball their freshman year and nothing else?
I really think it depends on the athlete. I'm going to give you an example. Izzy from the US team, she played basketball, and I think basketball is a very good complementary sport to flag. You've got really good hand-eye coordination. You've got the ability to break down. When you're guarding, you got the sudden change of direction, that a lot of guards play and things like that. So I think there are sports that, can facilitate and ease your way into flag football, soccer being one of them, basketball being one of them. And then I think there are other sports that, don't easily equip you for that. I think that when you're older, I would say when you're older and you kind of like if you're a senior and you've never played another sport before, it's going to be really hard for you to grasp flag because flag moves fast. The game of sevens is what collegiates play,
Mhm.
and yes, it's a bigger field. It's a lot to learn between playing man and playing zone and understand that your zone on one side of the field may not be the same as the zone on the other side of the field. Understanding angles to take when you're trying to pull a flag, understanding how to move with the ball in your hand. Flag guarding. Flag guarding is one of the hardest things for people to break. I mean, your natural running motion is to run with your hands down by your side, but when you're playing flag, you want to run with the ball up.
Yeah.
You want to keep the ball high so that you don't, a flag guard can really set back a drive. I think for the younger kids that are starting out, I think they have a very smooth advantage. If you start with a program that is truly dedicated to the game of flag and teaching the game of flag and really goes about it the right way, I mean, it is going to go a long way. And I think, as I've been watching a lot of clips and games and things on some of the younger girls and some of the younger organizations, I'm a little envious for some of the older girls because these girls that are coming around, they are going to be awesome in flag.
Mhm.
I mean, I've seen some of these young ladies that they can throw the ball extremely well. They move really well. They can play multiple positions. I mean, they are equipped to be the future, and it's nice to see that there are organizations that are really building a great foundation, a base for them, instead of just trying to jump in and being like, oh, well, this is the hottest, fad. This is the hottest trend out here. So, let me throw in a team here. Let's go a couple, go to a couple tournaments, or let me see if I can throw a tournament, make some money off it. I'm glad there are a lot of organizations that are taking their time to do it right. And, I hope that a lot of these parents and younger ladies do see that, hey, this is a team that's going about it right. Don't be afraid to walk away from somewhere where you don't feel like your best interest is in at hand. When I had a talk with some of the young ladies that are now going to be a part of my women's travel team, and I told them I'm quite proud of them that they've transferred, because they felt like they were going to waste their time and their abilities somewhere. And, that should never feel like the case. I know me being a former collegiate athlete, back in the day when transferring was extremely hard, you don't want to feel like you're trapped somewhere. If
Yeah.
you feel like, you feel like you got somewhere and the speech and what they gave you isn't the same. If you just feel like, hey, they just got me here to get me here, you should feel like you should have an outlet. You should feel like you should be able to move somewhere that is going to fit you better because, being in college, this is now going to build, what I say is the most important parts of your life going forward in adulthood. So, from 18 to 21, I mean, that's going to shape, how you go about and perceive the world. So, I think I would say I'm proud of a lot of them for kind of looking at, hey, I want to be a better flag player and I want something that's going to work out better for me in the long run. Even if I decide that, flag isn't going to be my end all be all, maybe they want to coach, maybe that school has the degree that they're looking for, maybe it's just a better fit for, where they came from and things like that. So, just different items. And again, I say for the younger ladies and their parents, if a program isn't working for you, do not be afraid to walk away. You're probably already spending money, put forward, make sure, put the pressure on them to put their best foot forward for you and your family and to make sure that you're getting everything that you want out of the deal and what you wanting.
So, and another question too, like, do you think, like, on the smaller leagues, like the little kids are like 5, 6 years old, they start them off playing co-ed flag football with the boys and stuff like that. Do you think that's when giving the upper hand too once they get to the higher levels because they played with boys going all the way up to age? I think it's like 10 or 12 years old and they finally split them up. Or do you think just playing with nothing but girls is going to be better for the ladies?
I think both. I'm gonna be completely honest. I mean, there aren't a whole lot of boys up until the age of 10 that are dominant like that, but I would say, I mean, girls are going to mature at a faster rate than boys are at that time anyway. So I think it's good for them to intermingle. If you can't find a team that's all boys, you can't find a team that's all girls, it's perfectly fine to me to intermingle them, because I think they're pretty much from about 5 to about 10 years old, they're about the same.
Mhm.
They've got the same kind of skill set. I mean, I would even dare to say that some of the girls are, a little bit more coordinated and move better than boys at that age. So I don't see anything perfectly wrong with that. I'm a competitor. So whatever I feel like is necessary for my child to get the best experience and to be better as an athlete and a competitor is what I want to do. If they're, my youngest son is 8 years old. He was 7 last year and he played up to 8U and 9U. And then, he just got done with the second grade. He's been playing against third and fourth graders. So, and he feels like, he's like, he's having some good games and some decent games. I know he wants to dominate. And I'm like, it will come. I was like, you need to be able to play against someone that's a little bit bigger and stronger than you. And you need to feel like that doesn't matter at the end of the day. That you being you is what's going to be the best part, regardless.
Right on. And then, like, I wonder why it's taken so long for the rest of the country to catch on to play football, for them to actually make it like a varsity sport, and for the NCAA to finally, like, I mean, they're still voting on it, but still to finally like, be like, you know what? Let's bring the sport in. Let's give these ladies a stage, and let's see what they're able to do. I mean, what do you think it took so long for everyone to jump on board with this?
First of all, no disrespect to the ladies, but when you've got a lot of older people making the decisions about, what they're going to do with a school's money or a college's money. They're not looking at women's sports as something that's going to, give them a profit, at the end of the day. And I think me and you kind of described it. Even though flag is blossoming the way it is, it is still not properly getting the right attendance, I would say.
Yeah.
You got some pretty big events that have gone on. Fiesta Classic, that attendance was pretty minimal. It looks good that it's on TV, but what about the people that are actually there?
Yeah.
That's what matters. Everything you can televise things. We've got all these different streaming apps and all these different places where we can put stuff on TV. And I think what's really hurt the world is, to be honest with you, COVID. I think COVID changed the way that we looked at how things should be, how attendance and stuff should be taken. Like everyone now is okay with, all right, we're going to do everything virtual, or we'll send out this link and you can watch it from there. Back in the day, you want to promote it. I want you to be in the seats. I want you to
Hmm.
feel this environment. And I think being a former athlete, I'll never forget. I tell people all the time, when I was running track, the stadiums were filled, but the only person I heard was my mom. Like
Yeah.
that, I needed her there. I needed her there. Like I needed, I think a really good competitor feeds off of the environment that they're in. I want
Hmm.
to be booed. I want
Yeah.
to be cheered. The booing makes me play harder. The cheering makes me go all out. And I think that that is something that we are missing right now for, flag football is that we don't have that sustained attendance for events. And I think that's hard also to do because there's so many events going on right now all over the country is like you don't really know where to be. There's so many, oh, this is a national showcase and this is a national showcase and oh, you need to play in this to get to that, or this is a regional for that. I mean, there is just everything's kind of all over the place. And I feel bad for organizations that, I feel like they're chasing images and clout. But they should be looking at, okay, let's sit down and let's really see, all right, if we want to hit 6 to 8 events a year, what is going to be the best bang for our buck? What
Hmm.
is what is going to be the best circuit that I can put together for us that makes us start to build and grow as an organization. Not just, hey, well, we got to go to this and we got to go to that. We got to go to that. We got to go to that because, those are national showcases. Those don't always work out for everyone. At the end of the
Exactly.
day, there can only be one champion. At the end of the day, there can only be one champion. And for a lot of it, I mean, I've seen my niece plays with a really talented team, Pirate Bay Crew, out in that Florida area, and they took their lumps. And they're a very good team now, but they strategically placed themselves where they needed to get better, where they were going to face better competition. They played up and to get better. And so now they are one of the creams of the crop. One of my good friends, Daisha McGowan, runs Dimes Elite. They are a very good team. And she strategically has built her program from the ground up 10U, 12U, 14U. Now they've got 8U. They're building their way up the pipeline and they're a much better team. And now they can really focus on, okay, now which national showcases do we want to hit? They weren't just trying to go out there and be seen. And, if they weren't ready, they weren't ready. She strategically built it the way they needed to build it.
Yeah, and it's funny you brought up the whole FPS Bowl because those are actually there, and yeah, they hyped it up, but I don't think they hyped up enough because it didn't get the big turn of the crowd that they deserve. Like if you look at the boys' Fiesta Bowl, I mean it's a sold out crowd. They have the big parades, they have a whole week of festivals. The girls got here, and you didn't even know the teams were in town unless you watched the news that morning. It was like, oh wow, we have a flag football event going
Mhm.
on. Now, with stuff being like that, how do you think NIL is going to play a deal with flag football? Because you're going to have like a Maya Moreno going into college next year, who's obviously the number one flag football player. I mean, she's like one of the godmothers of females going
Mhm.
into football. So, do you think NIL is going to go by name, or are they going to look at these events that are going on, these camps going on, and try to find players that way?
It's tough when you talk about NIL for flag. And I feel like that is because flag right now doesn't have a lot of power four, power five, or D1 dominant schools yet. Like my
Uh-huh.
alma mater, Nebraska, they've gotten the former Ottawa coaches there. And, that is a huge building point. and Nebraska will be all about NIL, but it's going to be harder for other schools because they typically they're not huge schools for D1 like that for NIL, especially for girls. So if you're looking at, Kaiser is NAIA, Warner, NAIA, but they're not typically, once I think flag grows and builds, they're not going to be playing in Nebraska consistently. Once the Big Ten decides they're going to put, all of their teams into flag football, that's not going to happen.
Mm,
Once the Big 12, you know, puts it together, once the ACC puts it together, once those Power Five schools get on board and put that program in, it's going to be hard for a Nebraska to play a Kaiser or Nebraska to play a Baker. It's going to change the landscape of the way things go. So I think for right now, I think for the girls who are really going to make decent enough money off the NIL, I mean, it's going to come from a lot of, I guess companies that are hungry. I mean, I don't particularly see there aren't a lot of flag companies right now that are giving full blown NIL money.
yeah,
They don't have the first of all, they don't have the inventory to do that, and they don't have the ability to pay to do that. I mean, it's kind of tough. I mean, you look at the gloves company Invictus, you look at, I mean, Denver DeJong is, she signed to Phenom, she's their only athlete. And I think that's very smart is that, hey, I can't take on too many because, I don't know how far it's going to go. And then, also because it's in its infancy, I mean, who's to say that you may sign an athlete and then they may go to the next level and they may not look as great as they did against high school competition. I mean, we see that
right,
all the time that has happened. You got a superstar here in high school and they flame out in college. You
yeah,
see it all the time. So, it's kind of a hard draw, I think, right now for the young ladies with NIL. I mean, I think that's just I would just say as a parent, get a scholarship. If
yeah,
a school is, if we visit, take your visits. I mean, don't just settle for, oh, they're going to give me a scholarship and I didn't have any. No, take a visit. Take 3, 4 visits. Like take them, use them wisely. Understand that yes, you're going to be playing flag, but also what do you want to do after flag? If you don't plan on trying to play on a US or international team, or, if you're not going to try to jump on, if there's these professional leagues actually go off, if it's not something or you don't want to coach, you need to get your degree in something that you love, that you can
yeah,
fall back to. What are you going to go home to? Like, at the end of the day, don't chase NIL money for flag right now. I would say get your degree
mhm,
and work towards if you want to coach or if you want, what you want to do on later on in life. And if you're a very good player, a successful player, I mean, there will be opportunities for you to travel as an adult. That somebody will sign you here. Here's a partnership. Here's a collaboration that we're going to do. But I would not put all my eggs into NIL money for flag right now. That's not something I would do.
yeah, and like and going off the NIL too, like that's another thing about with the girls being recruited, how you brought up, there's not going to be enough like recruits for everybody. My biggest fear is that these girls are going to take that first offer and the coaches aren't going to play them. It's going to be like how you see a lot of the tournaments where you have a team of 40 and they only play that main 11, and then you're going to miss out on a bunch of talent from other girls. You know what I'm saying?
Hmm.
How do you see the college scene being structured? Like, do you think it's gonna be structured the way like the boys call football is structured with the playoffs, the was it 16 games, and then the national championship?
Oh, I don't foresee it going that way because I think kind of what they have now. I mean, they're kind of sort of getting there. They got the rank. I've seen the rankings come out here and there. What's around there? I mean, the girls play a lot of games right now, which I think they should. I think they should play 35 to 30 to 40 games a year. Right now. That gives you a good base of who's really good. I mean, I like how they have it kind of in a tournament structure. So they've got,
Hmm.
4 to 6 teams that are there that weekend or 8. And then they've kind of like they've got pool play and then they play into the playoffs. So, I mean, it's always going to be the structure of flag. And I think you do that right now. I like how the NIA has the top 8 teams that get invited. But I think really, you take your your 4 top conference winners And then you take, based upon, who they've played this year, and you put them in there for the next four. And I think that now that you're seeing a lot of schools come into it, I think now you have the opportunity where you don't have to play a school 7 times this year, like they had to kind of do before. Like, I mean,
Yeah.
I think that, based upon the school's budget, if they can afford to play if Kaiser can play Rutgers, if they can play, Cal Poly, if they can play Azusa Pacific, if they're going to play Baker, if they can play a Nebraska, if they, you want to see each other. I mean, the good teams are not going to run a run from competition. I think that only the really good coaches understand that I'm going to see them later anyway, so I
Mhm.
might as well play them. So, I mean, the game of flag, I mean, especially amongst the girls right now, it's spreading out, but it's still small. So they see each other quite often. They know each other. So, I
Yeah.
mean, you might as well play the competition. I don't foresee them going to kind of like how the guys do it for football. I mean, they still haven't figured that out anyway. So don't. I always say don't follow what the football does. Don't follow what the NCAA does because they still ain't figured it out. They keep changing systems every 10 years, 15 years, whatever. So no, if it ain't broke right now for the girls, I mean, let it build that way. You can do a D1 championship, you can do an NAIA championship, and then you can take the winners and the runner-ups and you can do like something like, hey, now we've got the, grand champions kind of tournament. You can do that kind of thing. But I think that right now, just kind of do how you're doing it. And then, maybe in a year or two, once, it's firmly established as an NCAA sport, then you start talking about that picture of, all right, so we're going to have a, D1 champion. We're going to have our D2 champion. We're going to have our D3 champion, NIA champion. And then we're going to have our JUCO champions. And then we'll put them all together for the grand champions kind of tournament. I think that's only fair for the ladies to kind of do it that way.
So I've been seeing a lot this week too is a lot of girls in there entering the transfer portal when it really hasn't been an official season. I mean, to me, it's kind of silly that you're going to enter the transfer portal when you haven't played a regular season. How do you feel about that one?
So I'm going to tell you why they are because they got to campus and they figured out that I'm going to be pretty frank. Their coach can't coach, or that program or that school is not meant for them. They feel like, and again, I've had this with some of my girls, that are or some of my young ladies that are going to play on the adult travel team, is that they've got to a school and there's favoritism there, or there's politics, or they realize, or maybe the coach left right before the season and now they've got someone that's not quite as hewed into flag football, and so they're like, I don't want to spend 4 years here.
Mhm.
I don't want to do that. Like, I want to take the opportunity now that maybe there are some other programs that have established themselves, that, hey, I want to take 3 or 4 visits. I want to make sure I wind up somewhere where I'm supposed to be. I want to make sure that this school is going to use my talent. They may have told me, hey, you're going to get here, you're going to play wide receiver, and then I'm rushing and I don't get to play. I mean, that happens. I mean, Lauren Clark, she took her talents to Warner and she won. I mean, she was a hot commodity and she had to get out of there. She had to find where she needed to be.
Yeah. So, what's some questions you think that parents of students that are going to be going into college wanting to play flag, or girls that are wanting to go to college, what's the questions they should be asking the colleges and the coaches before they make that commitment to go to those schools?
They should find out, you should always look up what kind of experience that coach has. Have they ever coached flag before? If they haven't coached flag before, have they ever coached any kind of a young ladies team? Do they have any experience working with young ladies or women? Like, I mean, then I think it's a big deal. The way that you coach
Mhm.
young women and the way that you coach young men is completely different.
Yeah.
And, I know people say, well, some girls like for you to be hard on. I don't want to hear none of that. Like, it is a completely different feel and approach to the way that you go about things coaching young ladies and young men. I think they should ask a lot of questions about, what's the travel schedule going to look like? What is going to be the makeup of how the team travels? Like, how are the girls going to be staying? Like, what do the dorms look like? What does practice look like? Like, what are our expectations as a team? How do you hold us accountable if we don't meet our expectations? I mean, those are things that, I mean, a lot of parents probably don't ask. But I mean, when I was visiting colleges for school, my mom asked those things. And I was looking at her like she was crazy. She was like, "You ain't gonna have my son out here looking crazy. So, like, how do you travel? Like, where is he gonna be staying? How can I meet some of his teammates? Where do they come from? What are their GPAs right now? Like, those are things you wanna know, like and I think coaches should ask the same. Coaches should be looking at it's not just about film. What's her GPA? What does her social media look like? What does she do for her free time? What kind of beliefs does this family have?
Hmm.
Like, have you been to their house to visit them? Have you had dinner with her parents? Have you had dinner with her? Like old school, traditional ways of recruiting. Not just, hey, I saw her at a camp and it was really nice talking to you. Hey, I called you 3 times. Are you coming to my school? Like, no, you got to sit
Yeah.
down. You have to know who you're talking with and who you're asking to come and you're going to build the next 3 to 4 years of their life with.
So then we were talking about this the other day when it comes to NFL flag. And to me, NFL play, they're just in it for the buck. And now they have the Olympics going on, and they're saying they want to start the women's league after the Olympics. Like, how do you feel about the whole NFL flag trying to start up and them trying to start their professional scene? Do you think it's really going to happen?
So, kind of my thoughts on it. NFL is a major commodity, and I don't want to speak bad on the NFL, but I feel like the NFL right now is just kind of tossing money at stuff. And of course, people are jumping at the money. They see, oh, the NFL is going to throw 2 million at this league and 2 million at this league and 2 million at this league. And oh, the Cowboys have a showcase they're doing every week or this league or whatever. So I feel like this if you're going to toss money at it, it should be a collegiate sport. You should be putting your hard earned money into making it a collegiate sport. You should putting your hard-earned money into making sure that it's a varsity sport for every state before you're throwing your money in the ring. That's how I feel. Like you should be starting from the bottom up and making sure that it gets the appropriate attention and visibility and mainframe and structure like you do men's sports. That you got a whole AAU circuit. You've got the NCAA. You've got all the boys' sports are sanctioned. Why is that half the country is sanctioned for girls flag and the other half is not?
Yeah.
Why haven't you been like, hey, I'm gonna give the state of Texas $5 million, and you need to figure out a way to make it sanctioned as a whole state. Otherwise, I'm not going to give you the money. Why are you just being all right? I'm going to give the Texans are giving 2 million, the Cowboys are giving 2 million, and it's still not a sanctioned a varsity sport. I mean,
And
there are girls out here playing. It's crazy. They're playing for a state title, and you're not even going to see that in the high school right now.
no, they're not. And
So I don't
that's
like
blows my
that.
mind.
It's crazy. Like they obviously want to play, so why is it not? I mean, now we talk about I can see it from the school's perspective. Maybe, okay, we got schools that cannot afford it to bring it on as a sport. So NFL, Nike, Under Armour, if you're gonna do it right, do it right.
Mhm.
Don't just throw money at, hey, we're gonna throw a tournament here and we're gonna have scouting combines here. No, it needs to be a varsity sport. That way it makes it easier for collegiate coaches to recruit these young ladies. They can just go to the school and watch them play against other teams and know that, okay, this is a state champion. This was a district champion. She's all district here. She's all state here. It makes it a lot easier. Build it the way that you built it for the men.
Yeah.
Don't half-ass it. Sorry. You just don't do it. Just don't do it.
I
Don't
agree
do
with
it.
you. Like, how do you see the sport being after the Olympics? I mean, do you think like
Ooh, I think, uh, I think once once the IFAF World Championships are over in August, I think the race to the Olympics next year is probably going to be one of the craziest times we see for any new sport. I think that for those people that are going to make this, excuse me, the international teams that are going to play in August, congratulations to you. But I think the competition to try to make these Olympic teams is going to be fierce. I think it's gonna be ugly, as far as friendships go and, how the how it is set up for teams and, how coaches are perceived by it, by the hard cuts they're gonna have to make. I think after the Olympics, I mean, I think the Olympics is gonna be like that initial high, right? That first one that everybody wants to go to, and then after that, we're gonna get, Olympics 4 more years from now. So I think it's gonna be sustained really well. I think it starts with each state sanctioning it as a varsity sport.
Yeah.
I think they can do that for boys too. I think for the guys, there are some guys that, they don't like the physicality of real football, or, maybe they got hurt and, they still love football, but they just can't take a hit like that. That's
Right.
something that, maybe you can make that a youth, a high school sport for guys that, he got hurt, or, it, some of the guys that play flag, they didn't play football or they didn't play basketball, and they're actually pretty good athletes. They just never, they just didn't do it in high school. So, maybe that gives them an outlet, that they can do there. Again, I think it starts with sanctioning it at the high school level, making sure that you've built the different divisions collegiately, and then, I think before you start talking about a professional league somewhere, I think you have to do it from the bottom first, the way it's supposed to be. I mean, there are still girls that aren't even allowed to play flag past middle school right now. So you got to start at the bottom before you
Yeah.
you start at the top and be like, oh, we're gonna do professional leagues. Like, no, don't do it that way.
Yeah. So like I know a lot of these girls though, they're chasing the Olympic dream. They're seeing that if they go play for USA football or they go play at these big tournaments and stuff like that. But what really bugs me is a lot of these tournaments tell these girls that these big college coaches are going to be there. So to get the girls to show up, to get the parents to get their kids there. But once they're there, those coaches aren't there. It's like a video gets sent to them. Am I right on that or
Right. Yeah, I would say you're definitely right. I mean, I look at it like this. I think parents have to use a little bit of common sense as well too. Like, tell me who is a big time collegiate flag football coach right now, other than the
none, right?
ladies. Other than the ladies that were at Ottawa. I
Yeah.
mean, we're talking about five-time national champions. Other than that, tell me who is a major collegiate flag football coach. No one. Half the time there are people who can't. You ask them like, "Well, tell me who's a major collegiate flag football program," and they don't know.
Yeah.
Like I'm like, you can't just say, oh, Michigan is. Michigan don't have a team. You can't just say, oh, USC. USC is a club team. UCLA is a club team. Arizona State is a club team. Arizona is a club team right now. They're not officially an NCAA team. And I think a lot of parents don't know that. And I think one thing I also know is this: is our youth, they don't do their research like we
No.
used to do. So they go off of, oh, well, yeah, I saw them on social media, they're playing all the tournaments. Then no, they don't. Like, I think we need to you need to get to the fact of, hey, as an athlete and as a parent, you have to do your research. I mean, you have to understand the landscape of where you are. And
Where do you want to see the sport go in 10 years from now?
in
How do
10
you
years,
envision? Yeah.
in 10 years, I would hope that, and it's sanctioned at every high school in America for young ladies. Um, excuse me, 1A, 2A, 3A, 4A, 5A, 6A. I don't care what divisions you have, whether, I mean, I hope that, they have the the medals and the ability to be named all county, all district, all state. I hope that like I said before, I hope that we have a D1 level, we have a D2 level, I hope we have a D3 level. I hope that we have it for JUCOs. I hope we have it for NIIA. I mean, I hope we have it all the way around. I hope that at some point that we have, different champions from the different divisions, and then they play in a grand finale to see who is going to be, the champion. I think over the next 10 years, I think we're going to see enough young ladies to be talented that there isn't going to be a major gap between D1, D2, D3, and AIA and things like that. I think that, we're not talking about when guys put on pads and they play. We're not talking about that. Flag is a very different game. It is not always about who is the biggest person playing or the strongest. Most times it's about, who is the most agile and who has a great understanding. I tell my ladies that, hey, flag to me, flag is 10% physical and 90% mental. I feel like if I can outsmart you, I'm in a good position. I feel like at some point, when you're talking about the cream of the crop, we are all athletes. But can I fool you? Can I get you? Can I disguise a coverage that's going to make you make a mistake? Can I exploit matchups if I feel like this young lady is faster than her, or I feel like this young lady struggles in one-on-one coverage, or these two over here are successful to double moves. That's coaching. You know,
Wow,
at
man.
the end of again, I just feel like with young ladies, I mean, when you've got talent, especially in flag, it's not always about size. And it's not always about. I mean, speed kills, but in fives, speed can be neutralized. The field isn't the greatest. If I can put certain people on at certain angles at it, I mean, you can change things. So, I mean, I feel like in 10 years, it's got a good way. I feel like it's going to go a long way. I mean, I feel like it'll stay as an Olympic sport, but I think here in America we can really set the tone if we do it the right way.
Yeah.
If we make sure that, it's available as a middle school sport, it's available as a high school varsity sport, JV sport, sophomore, freshman kind of deal. Like if we can break it all the way down like we've done other sports and do it properly, I think we can go a long way with that. I mean, I think that, hey, you may have a freshman that's good enough to play varsity. Sure, but you may have freshmen that are not good enough to play
Mhm.
varsity. So have a freshman team. And then when you get into college, like, I mean, I mean, I hate to say it, kind of like you said before, that, some people feel like, oh, they're sitting on the sideline. When you get to college, the best of the best are going to play. I mean,
Yeah.
that's just how it goes. I mean, it's not the YMCA. It's not, your local league. Like when you go to college, like it's one thing I like, if you can't beat out that person, you're not going to play. It's just pretty simple as that. So, what's your drive when you get there? Do you want to be the best, or are you there just for a scholarship? Are you there just to pass the time? If
Exactly.
you want to be great, then be great. Outwork her. Want to be better than her. Prove to coach she shouldn't be starting. I should be the starter, and I should never lose it. Loving basketball type stuff.
Yeah, I mean, like, again, it's like dangling that carrot in front of these young girls' eyes where all you have to do is go play high school ball. You're gonna go to college and become this big Tom Brady for the female world. And it's not gonna
Mhm.
happen. Like they're not explaining to
Right.
the girls the hard work that goes in to becoming one of these goats in flag football. So
Yes.
what's your organization have coming up, man? Like I know you have a lot of tournaments going on and you have a lot of teams. Tell us something about that.
So we are going to be having our first youth tournament next weekend, June 6th and 7th. It's going to be here in the DFW area, Little Elm High School. We've got youth girls on Saturday, 8U through high school. We've got the boys on Sunday, 8U through 14U. We've combined with D1 West Frisco, which does it's going to do our combine training kind of stuff. We've also got route runners, Ricky Collins, used to be in the NFL, CFL. He's trained some guys that have made it to the league, made it to the NCAA. Really, really nice, good friend of mine. We've partnered with Highlight Factory ATL, which is going to be our merch vendor. They are huge. The kids love the gloves. They love the bright stuff on there. We've got some really good other vendors that are going to be out: KW Kitchen, JBW Vending. Miss Vanita Crouch, the goat herself, is going to be there in attendance. So we would love for you to guys come out there, get some pictures with her, pick her brain. She's been doing it a long, long time, 20 years, just like me. So, pick her brain there. We've got an adult showcase that we're doing in Grove City, Ohio. It's about 20 minutes from Columbus, Buckeye State Nation. For adults, we'll have guys fives, we'll have women fives, air it out. We'll have co-ed, and then we have a all girls showcase that we're doing in Grove City, Ohio again about a month later, August 22nd to 23rd. And this is strictly for the young ladies. This is a chance for you to shine. We're going to have some youth divisions for fives, and then we're going to have high school sevens. And we're going to do that. Been talking with a couple of different colleges out here about doing some showcases and some like camps and clinics that we want to put together out here. So I'm one thing that I've kind of told some of our women's teams. By the way, we do have a women's team. Actually, we have quite a few. We have about three women's teams that we are going to be traveling around the nation. We'll be playing at Weekend Warrior Worlds. We'll be playing in the Unleashed tournament. I think we are going to go play out in Arizona at that State Farm, a classic out there. I think that would be really
Okay.
nice for us. We're going to play in nationals and UFFL. So I think one of the things about us is that we want an ecosystem for everyone. We don't, I'm not in it for the money. I'm not in it for those things. Like, I've played flag for 20 years and this is a love of mine. Like I've done leagues, I've thrown tournaments, I've done coaching, and I feel like where I'm at in my point of playing flag and doing things for flag is I really want to see the generations grow, and I want to see how good some of these players can be. I happened to find it when I was an adult. It wasn't something that was huge when I was a kid. And so now with the ability of it for it to blossom, I want to see that, hey, you came to one of my camps and 10 years later you're coaching somewhere, or you're in the Olympics, or you're on the national team. I want to say that, hey, we had, two teams that started from the bottom in the DFW area. They started playing at Unleashed tournaments, and now they're like, hey, Coach Kev, now we're playing in battle. We won battle. We won nationals. Like we started at your tournament, and we played in 3 or 4 of them, and we knew we got better from those tournaments, or, you know, you were helping the local colleges around here that weren't as big as like a Kaiser or a Warner or Ottawa or any of those names, and you helped them to bring in some talent that they were probably never have seen. Hey, they came to this showcase and we found some diamonds in the rough, and all of a sudden those girls have the opportunity to compete for the USA team, or maybe they get dual citizenship, they compete for Canada, or they Australia, or whatever the case may be. Like,
Mm,
I want to see everybody win. That's kind of how I look at it. Like, I'm not one of those that wants to just collude everything and just have everything for myself. I want to see everybody win. That's why I've been telling some of the vendors, hey, come out. If you got something that you wanna show out here, I got a guy that, he just does gloves for I'm him gloves, just for boys. I'm like, bring it out here. Like, let's see what the market is for you. I got a guy that he is a QB coach out here in Prosper, and he's like, I need to try to find a clientele base. And I'm like, come on out here, talk to some of these youth kids, see if some of
mhm.
these guys want some training. Like, I want everybody to win. I mean, I love sports.
Yeah.
I grew up with sports, and my fiance loves sports. I mean, so we have a great bond there. So this is something that we're putting all of our heart and soul into. So we want to watch it grow. We want everyone to grow with us. That's one thing I know.
So how can people get a hold of you that want to go play for one of your clubs or just
You can message us on Instagram at Unleash Flag, Unleash_flag. You can reach out to us on Facebook, Unleash Flag. I've got a Facebook, Kevin Dickens Jr. My IG is at Special K to the D. We also have a website, unleashflagfootball.com. I mean, I'll give you a phone number if you want. You can call me. I like talking on the phone. I'm old school like that. I like talking on
yeah,
the phone, so I got no
right
problem with that. So
right
any
on,
way you
man.
can get a hold of us.
So last question, man. I ask everybody this. Now, we're like kind of the pioneers of trying to get this stuff going on and helping these girls. What's the one thing you want people to remember you for when it comes to flag football when it's 50 years from now?
50 years from now, don't be unrivaled. Don't find yourself with a hard count or a soft count. Just make sure you unleash the beast.
Come on. All right. Well, that's all the time we got for today. I want to thank you, Ken, coming on. Like I said, we've been talking back and forth for a few weeks now, man. And I mean, we even got something we're trying to work on. So hopefully, pretty soon we can make that
Yeah,
announcement come true.
yeah.
Arizona
Yeah,
Cardinals, that's good too.
yeah, yeah. That would
So
be nice. It would be
it
definitely
will be
nice.
nice. But
Yes, for sure.
hey, man, again, thanks for coming on and taking the time to answer some questions and sharing your love of the sport, man.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me, Danny. And
Hey,
shout out to She Plays Nation. I mean, you're
uh,
doing a great thing, brother. And I'm glad we connected. And I look forward to working with you going forward.
awesome, man. Thanks a lot. All right. And you can catch our next show next week. You can again go check out Kevin at Unleash Flag on Instagram, Facebook, and his website. I'll post details on YouTube later on this week. But besides that, go have fun, go out there, practice, become great. And we will talk to you guys next week.